Shatay.
And I'm Scott, and we're the Hazes.
Welcome to the Love Haze, where we rethink the way that we love life.
And we definitely believe that there will always be a haze, but we can show up whole and healed anyway.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
So today, we're going to talk about healing after a loss or a lesson. So on our last episode, we really talked about learning to take the L, learning to take the lesson.
Yep.
So now we want to talk a little bit more about healing after taking that lesson.
Looking forward to it.
Let's do it. So, on healing. So you know I do this. So in my day-to-day work, I kind of help people with healing in some shape, form, or fashion every day.
Yep.
So I deal with folks who are dealing with substance abuse issues, PTSD, all the different things that they may have experienced throughout their military career, before they went into the military, all those things. So most of those issues surround some level of healing.
Yep.
And I'm able to see that and help people along with that day by day. It is a totally different story as it relates to my own personal healing and that type of thing. So, and we'll get more into the meat of that as we go along. But what does healing look like for you?
What does it look like? Healing to me is... So I believe that we all come here whole, right? We are all, born into this world whole with everything that we need to operate in the world. And then at every moment, God shows up with the additional, right? The other parts that we need, right? Healing to me is when life happens. Things you don't choose or things that you actively choose. And when they scar you. So I can't say that they break you. I think that things can bend you, right? I don't know that I believe that people are ever broken. Because spiritually, I don't know. I think our spirits maybe can be fractured, but I don't think we can be broken. I'm saying a lot of words to say that I think healing is moving forward, like using those fractured places, mending them, filling them with something, filling them with love, filling them with a lesson, so that you can move forward better somehow.
No, I dig what you're saying. But I think the very first thing that you said is really what resonates with me. Like this idea that we come here as whole people.
Yeah.
I think so often we are taught that, we're not whole, and some of the romantic movies and stuff that you see is like you complete me kind of bullshit. That's not real. Like we come here as whole people who are attached to other whole people. And when things happen to us, we aren't broken and shattered into pieces, right? There may be some fracture, some healing that we have to do, but it's not this idea that I need some external thing to complete me again or to make me whole again. And I think that's really the framework, right? That's really what I understand and kind of the base that I work from. Like at the very minimum, at our baseline.
I got it. I just had an aha moment when you were talking. It dropped in my spirit. This is it. We are born whole. Yes, which means Bible says there is no lack in His supply. We are born whole into abundance. When we go through life and things happen, it makes us forget our abundance. It makes us operate in the lack for whatever reason. The hurt, the disappointment, the physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. Healing is the thing that has to happen to make us remember our wholeness, our abundance. I couldn't find the words before. But that is essentially at the heart of it, what it is. Getting back to that place where you're not operating at a deficit anymore. Right. Where you are back at not just base level also, but thriving. Whatever that looks like in the new post-heal, or I don't know if there's post-healing, but post-situation.
Well, a part of that, even with what you said then, right? There's some learning that I think that we get through our upbringing. A lot of times, that kind of reinforces the fact that we're broken and that we need some other external thing to make us whole again, and we have to be reminded. And I like the idea that healing is like a reminder of who you always were and what you always had in you, and that type of thing, like a reconnection, a recharge almost, and this belief that you're being restored to what you already were. Because that's what healing, restoration, all those things are, all of that, right? It's not like you're being restored to what you already. That's what restoration is, right? It's this idea that this thing was already beautiful, it was already gorgeous. There's been some damage, but we're restoring too. A lot of times people think that I've got to add this thing and do this new thing and do this other thing, and I'm gonna be brand new, da 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 da, and where you're being restored to what you already were, you are already worthy. Your wholeness, your worth, all those things. You're just being reminded that you are already all those things. You just need to walk in that. Yep. Right? We walk around a lot of times damaged. Yeah. More so because we have forgotten that we're already whole. Something has happened to us, some injury or some other thing that has made us believe that we are not worth, we don't have as much value, right? And we lean into that, and we say that, okay, this thing happens to me. It happened to me. I don't ever want it to happen again. I'm damaged, and so I move different now, right? I don't do this anymore the way that I used to because I'm damaged by the situation that happened to me. Whereas the idea of being whole and being healed is that I have exactly what I need. I can make the adjustment. I can move forward. And everything that I have in me is already enough to do what I need to do in order to move forward.
So, Mr. Mental health professional, do you have to make a choice to heal? And if so, what keeps people from choosing healing?
So you absolutely have to make a choice to heal. And I would even endeavor to say that most of the folks that I've worked with at my job, and even friends that I've talked to and kind of engaged in some level of like friendship, kind of walking them through things that they've been through. If you are committed to that injury, right, and holding on to the comfort of that injury, because think about going to a doctor after you've sprained an ankle or broken a leg. The doctor gives you a crutch, right, to help you get around, and maybe one crutch, and maybe two crutches. Sometimes people can get so dependent on the crutch. And they're dependent on the crutch because they don't trust the healing of the leg, right? So I'm scared to put it back down again because what if it's not ready, right? And it's so much easier to keep my crutch and just keep hopping around here rather than believe that this leg is healed enough. You go back to the doctor for your 8-week follow-up. The doc says, hey, you need to get into some physical therapy. You need to be putting a little bit of pressure on that thing day by day. And you say, no, I want to keep using my crutch, right? So, and what I see on an emotional level so many times is we get comfortable with our crutches, whatever they may be. Those things that may continue to remind us of what the injury is, right? So if I never trust anybody again, then I don't have to worry about my healed place possibly not being healed.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that some people keep their crutch because of the attention they get from it, like the sympathy they get from it, the coddling, this person went through that, so we need to... You think so?
Absolutely. I mean, you're gonna have folks who, lean into what that means, right?
What was me?
Yeah, that good old what was me, and I can't ever, and without the support and all that kind of stuff. But even that is coming from a hurt place, from an injured place, from something else that wasn't healed.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other piece of healing that this person hasn't done, to where I need attention in this area.
Yeah.
Even though this is no longer an issue, I'm just kind of, staying with it.
Right.
Just because if I don't have this thing, then there won't be anybody around in my mind.
Yeah, mostly, what was that? Maybe Brene Brown, we talked about her before, but she mentions, like, as a researcher of shame and all of that the number one thing that people want is to feel connected. They want to feel seen. And so maybe some people, in keeping their crutch, feel seen. That's how they get to be seen. But I think that it's, I would imagine, a much healthier position to be seen in your wholeness, in your in your healed place, and not seen from your I don't want to say broken, damaged, fractured place. Yeah,
absolutely. Because for some folks, then if I'm healed and if I don't need any help, then who am I without my injury?
But I think you can be healed and still need support. Like, I don't think they're mutually exclusive, right? Like, just because I'm hurting, like, yes, that is the you can actually see that, visibly see that. But I can still be healed and operate from a place of security and wholeness, and still, like, need your support, need your love, need your nurturing, just in a different way.
But you have people who don't know how to communicate that, right? So the injury for some folks is, like, I don't know how to tell people that I need support without it, like, being like a
sign of weakness,
right? A weakness, or gotta be here kind of stuff,
And people, can we just PSA real quick on that? It's okay to need help. It's okay to, like, be in a village and need to lean on the people in your village. So if you need the help with, I don't know, career, childcare, like, health, mental health, emotional support, like, you have people around you for a reason. Like, you don't have to do life alone unless you choose to. Okay. So what's the haze in all of in healing? What's the thing that's just like, ugh?
It's really that portion of being able to get over the injury. And it's not that you need to forget per se that you were injured, right? It's the moving forward part. Like, if we can circle back to what we talked about earlier about having, like, a broken leg or a sprained ankle, it's that first part of, like, starting to put pressure back on it, right? Starting to have to put the crutch down and say that I can do, go back to my wholeness, and I can walk unassisted again, or without this crutch, and I can walk, I can jump, I can run, and I'm not worried about that fracture being there, or that thing that held me back. I know what happened, right? But I can still put full pressure on this leg and know that I'm healed and I'm going to be okay. So being able to let go of those things and have the faith that you can walk in your healing, and also know that, it happened, right? And so many of us can't let go of what happened, because what if it happens again when I have to do this thing again?
Yes.
Right.
And that makes sense.
Hard.
If you get bit by a dog, chances are, like, I don't want to mess with dogs anymore. And that's a difficult haze, because sometimes that fear keeps you safe. Like, it keeps you from experiencing that type of pain or trauma again. But on the flip side, at the same time, as everybody's saying these days, it also keeps you from moving forward and growing. So, like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you keep enough fear to keep you wise? I'll use that choice of words. Keep enough fear to keep you wise, but not enough to keep you guarded from, like, living life or being whole. Like, what's the line there?
So I think for me, when I think about what I want for myself and what I want in life, it exists past those things that I'm afraid of, or past those experiences. So there is no way for me to circumvent that part of life that I have to go through.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't even consider being away from those things that I have to get through to get to my goals to be safety. Right. I consider that being in a stagnant place or avoidance. Right. And that's not what I have to do in order to move forward. Right. So I can convince myself that I'm over here and safe. But if my goals are right past that thing that I'm not trying to go through, then I'm really not. I'm just avoiding. And a lot of us change our minds then and say, well, the Lord said that wasn't for me because I went over there and I got bit by a dog, right? And it's not real. It's just us having to face our fears, having to deal with our injuries, and also having to know that thing is there and showing up anyway and then doing the work, right? Or doing what it is that we say that we want to do in order to move forward. Because if we don't, then we're going to stay like
stuck.
Yeah, we'll be stuck.
The fear will hold you captive from living the life you really want to live or could imagine for yourself, right? Like you are then a prisoner of that fear. You are a prisoner of that past situation. You are a prisoner of that altercation, fallout. You're a prisoner of that trauma. And I think for me, here's another, just back to the first question you asked, for me, healing is also freedom. Like I am freeing myself from the shackles of this thing that does not serve me anymore. Never really served me in the first place except for to teach me the lesson.
Right.
And so I think choosing healing means to like choose your own emotional, spiritual, mental freedom.
And even with that, right? So the lesson that you glean a lot of times after you've been injured is learning how to move different.
Yeah.
So I can remember when I sprained my ankle the first time, it was because I came down on it wrong, right? But it was about learning how to jump, right? And how to plant my feet when I land, right? And so that doesn't mean you don't jump anymore, right? It means you learn how to jump and how to land, right? And how not to place pressure on the wrong side.
Toe ball heel. That's how you do it in dance, right? Toe ball heel.
Right. Because if you don't do it that way, then you're prone to get injured.
Exactly.
Right? And so it doesn't mean never jump again. You leap, but you do the research and you learn what you're supposed to be doing so you don't come down on it wrong again. You keep dancing. Right? You keep moving. You just study how I land right the next time. Toe ball heel. No, nothing about no toe ball heel, but it makes sense. But I'm saying we still have to move forward, and that's what we have to do. And for me, there have been times when I just wanted to rest and abide in that injury. And going back to the attention piece of it, it was that I wanted everybody to know that this person had hurt me so bad, right? And I was over here and woe is me and Scott gonna be all right. Don't worry about it. You gonna come out on the other end of this thing. You gonna write a book, baby, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, people support me. They're there for me, right? But at some point I had to move past that injury, right? And do some research. I had to get my butt in therapy, right? And learn how can I go at this thing again. Right? How can I do better the next time so that I don't misstep the next time? Right? What healing do I need to do? What part in the lesson is there for me to do my part so I don't end up in this situation and injured in this way again? Yeah. Right? And a lot of times we can get stuck, you know, because it feels good to be coddled and for, you know, people to say, hey, baby, it's going to be all right. You know, I remember when my daddy used to whoop me. And my daddy can't be prosecuted because he gone on to be with the ancestors now. But my daddy used to whoop us with anything he could get his hands on. And I remember my daddy whooped us with the extension cord. Because Michelle called me a name and picked her up and put her in the wall, and it made a big hole in the sheetrock of the wall. My dad hooked us with an extension cord. And I remember going to tell my granny on my daddy, and she was so mad at him. And she just cussed and fussed and went off on him about whooping her grandbaby like he didn't have no sense. And I was well over the injury, but when I would go to my grandmother's house, I'd be like, my daddy whooped me. He didn't have to do us like that. He didn't have to do us like that. But I wanted that coddling, right? And, you know, there were times when I would regress to that, like still wanting that coddling, still wanting that it's going to be okay.
Sound like he ain't get whooped enough.
But also, as an adult, learning to establish other ways of getting support rather than needing to be coddled. Yeah. Right? Establishing support around people who are also moving forward. Yeah. Right? Being linked to folks who maybe have been through some of the things that you've been through, but also encourage therapy. People who you can call to say, hey man, who can I go and see about this particular issue? Or I have a niece or a nephew or whoever who may need this type of assistance. Can you recommend? And surrounding yourself with other people who are doing the same kind of work of moving forward, you know, rather than, you know, wasting away in their comfort zones or in their safety.
Mindset is so important. Iron sharpens iron, right? Eagles soar with eagles. And it's okay to need support and like wallow just like a hot second with people, but you also, that's so real. You got to be around people who will pull you up. Pull you up out of your stinking thinking. That's real.
And sometimes I just want to hold that thing against people sometimes, that injury. And I think a part of what we talked about previously was like not holding on to stuff, and using it as ammunition. And also just the weight of that stuff, right? So, you know, even when you heal from something, like if you're going to bring it along with you, then what's the point? You know, to use it as an excuse for not moving forward or not walking into your healing. Like if I'm going to bring that baggage along with me, then I don't really want the healing. Right? I just want to be well enough to show somebody my injury and my scar.
You want to wear all your scars and bad. Right. Like, look what I've been through.
Right. And for what though? Because it doesn't give us permission to walk in our wholeness if we're going to hold on to all that old stuff.
So then what are some practical ways to choose healing and then to keep choosing it every day? I know you mentioned before, like you just kind of have to have a vision of who you want to be, who you aspire to be, and I think that's a good idea. And then make choices that are in alignment with who that person is. But from, you know, what you tell the vets that you work with or just anyone, like what's a practical way to choose healing?
I really think it's just about getting up every day and deciding that I am a whole and healed person, and on this day, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I know that this is something that I can do, and to be intentional about gathering other tools that can help you, like along your journey, like to forge ahead, right? Not this idea that that I'm in lack somehow. Yeah. But also that I can always be learning something new or doing something to enhance that helps me along. Right. And not this idea that I just don't have enough. Right. That I'm walking around here and I'm unhealed, I'm broken, all these other things. Right. Because then we start to put labels on ourselves. Right. And a lot of those labels are negative labels that say, that they reinforce those things that we have been. Like I'm a liar, I'm a cheater, I'm a weed head, all these other things that may have been some behavior that I displayed in the past that is no longer a part of who I am. Right. So I'm restored, I'm renewed, I'm whole, and I can move forward in that. And I won't allow those things to be a part of how I'm described, and especially not by myself.
Right. I think an important part of that, and I will just add, is really just affirming who you are. And if you're not that yet, affirming who you're becoming, right? So actively releasing that. And when I say affirming, I mean like verbal affirmations, right? Life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so I live by affirmative speech and calling those things that are not as though they were. Like all of that is the same thing. It's an affirmation. And so it could just be affirming your healing, right? Like I released this thing and now I am XYZ. Like call it out, and call it out repeatedly. So anytime you feel yourself in a place where you're just kind of like in that damaged spot, reliving the hurt, like reaffirm your wholeness, reaffirm the forgiveness, reaffirm the moving on, and reaffirm it for as often as you need to. Until you're there.
And I think also that's a part of like actively making a choice.
Yeah.
Right. So when we wake up and we make those decisions, that is a choice, right? If you choose to affirm that there is lack, that you don't have the things that you need, that there's someone else that has to affirm this thing for you, about you, then that's also a choice, right? And it's just about the choices that we make on a daily basis.
Yep.
I choose affirmations that I am enough, that I have value, that I have worth, that these things are my goals can be obtained, that I have everything that I need, that I don't walk in lack, that I walk in abundance, right? And when I make that choice and I affirm those things, then I'm able to walk in healing, and I'm able to do the things that I say that I want to do, and I'm able to obtain my goals. And then I can garner support from those folks who are walking in the same direction that I'm walking in.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if you make the opposite choice, you can garner support from those people who are walking in the opposite direction as well. So basically, you're choosing positivity all the way around. You're choosing affirmation all the way around. And you can find folks that are going either direction.
Yep.
And it's about what you really want for yourself. If you want to be walking in your healing, you can walk in your healing. If you want to be walking towards your injury, you can walk towards that too.
It's up to you. So one of my favorite parts of our conversations is the music for this moment. And you know what? I have this one song, but I'm going to go ahead and give y'all 2 for 1 on this thing. So the first one that just did not hit me, honestly, until you were talking in the conversation. The first one that this absolutely feels like is Bag Lady, Erykah Badu. You gonna miss your bus, honey. Yeah, you gotta pack light. Like that is absolutely what we've been talking about, is like baggage and taking it with us and not choosing to let it go and heal. But in line with our conversation about affirmations and just kind of like affirmative speech is meditation, right? And there isn't this affirmative meditation by this group called Beautiful Chorus, and it's literally, I really love their one album called Mantras of Love, where they're like just affirming love and light throughout each little short meditation. There's this one that they have, it's called Release, and you'll see it linked below, that literally for 7 minutes, all they're saying is, I release everything that doesn't serve me. I release everything that no longer serves me. The first time I heard that, I don't know if you want to call it a song or meditation, I think they just call it a meditation, I was in tears. Because it was a really beautiful reminder to just like, on this day, at this moment, like let anything that is not serving me to be my best and highest self in this moment and moving forward, I've got to put it down. And so I want to share that with y'all. Like I don't listen to it every day. I really listen to it when I'm going through something that I need a reminder to let things go. But both of those opposite ends of the spectrum. Erykah Badu will give you some soul to help you let it go.
Hey.
And then Beautiful Chorus will give you the meditation you need to help you put it into practice. Check it out.
Bag lady, you gon' hurt your back, dragging all them bags like that. I guess nobody ever told you all you must hold on to is you, is you, is you.
that no longer serve me. I release all things that no longer work for me.
All right, now what you got?
Okay, so for our resources this week, I want to recommend that everybody go and listen to a sermon series by Michael Todd. It's called Damaged Goods. It is a 6-part series, and he covers everything basically about being damaged, about not being broken. The first one particularly stuck with me, and it really speaks to the fact that we can be damaged, right? We can be injured, we can be hurt by things, but nothing on the inside of us is any different. The integrity of everything that is still within us, it remains the same. So definitely check out that sermon series. The whole 6-part series is great. I would recommend the entire series. And once you get locked into the first one, you're going to want to see the others. But in the spirit of giving a twofer, I'm going to also recommend that you check out one of my earlier blogs called Damaged Goods as well. And you can check that out on ScottAHayes.com.
Hey.
So I'll let your boy. Let me know what you think.
All right. Well, that was a great conversation on healing. I'm sure we'll have it again personally and here with y'all. We want to thank y'all for joining us. As always, we are the Hayeses. And until next time, we want to challenge you to rethink the way that you love your life.
Amen. See y'all next time. Peace. Why'd you take so long to come to me? Oh, baby. And